At the Reform UK Small Business Press Conference, 300 small business owners were listening keenly as Nigel Farage laid out his plan to cut taxes, remove bureaucracy, and get Britain's economy moving again. Why does this matter? Because the people currently running the country have never run a business in their lives. In this video, you'll watch Nigel Farage lay out his plan for lower taxes and less red tape. And we'll show you the two leadership principles far too many politicians seem to have forgotten: first principles thinking and plain common sense. Before we get into the details, if you love diving into political issues and enjoy hearing a principled take on them, then hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe to join the conversation. It will help our channel reach a wider audience.
Everybody, welcome to the launch of Small Business for Reform. And for those watching at home, what you have in the room, and they've all travelled today to London, are 300 small business owners. Today is the beginning of something that we intend to be very, very large indeed. The sheer level of disconnect between the front benches in Westminster and what these men and women do in their lives has never been greater at any time in our history. This Labour government has absolutely no comprehension of what it's like to set up a small business, to run a small business, and to meet a monthly payroll. None of them have ever done it. None of them get it. And as for the Conservative Party, which over the years would have said that it did stand for small business, well, in their time in office, all they did was punish small business again and again. And unlike the other party leaders, I set up my first small business in 1993. For 30 years, I've run small businesses. For 30 years, I've known what the ups and downs of running a small business are like. Many was the time when it came to meeting the monthly payroll, when the staff would be earning a lot more money than me. I know how tough it can be. I know how legislation impacts on small business, and I know how much time is taken up with bureaucracy if you run a small business. And yet, just think back over the last few years. The IR35 rules brought in by the Conservative Party, affecting every single self-employed sole trader in this country, frankly, in the most bureaucratic and the most ridiculous way. I think it all comes from Treasury thinking that says that anybody in the private sector simply must be a crook, and only those of us in Whitehall are the good guys. The IR35 rules have made life very, very difficult for self-employed contractors, and frankly, they simply need to be scrapped. And let's allow the self-employed who don't get sick pay or anything else, let's allow them to carry on with their lives. These businesses also hit by Jeremy Hunt's astonishing 30% increase in corporation tax in one go. In one fell swoop, put up corporation tax by 30%. And what that means is that all of these companies have less money to reinvest in their own businesses. Yet, again, that simply doesn't seem to be understood. And now we have a proposal from the Labour government that sole traders and small businesses, rather than filing annual returns to HMRC, will now be asked to file quarterly returns to HMRC, which just adds to cost, time, and bureaucracy. You can listen all you like to Labour, telling us that the Employment Rights Bill will make life better for employees. Well, maybe. If you're a big company with 5,000 or 10,000 staff, maybe you can deal with the increased cost and employee risk of the Employment Rights Bill. But what if you're a small business, just employing 3 people, and Labour bring in legislation whereby someone you take on could start to take action against you after literally the first day in work? There is no understanding of the impact of legislation. And that is because government only listens to big business. I saw this myself in my 20 years in Brussels. The big companies had their own lobbying offices, and it's not dissimilar here in Westminster. It's the big businesses that take you to Wimbledon. It's the big businesses that take people out for dinner. It's the big businesses that shape policy. And the small businesses, frankly, don't even get a look in. And yet, when you think about it, that's remarkable. Because over 99% of all businesses in this country are small businesses with fewer than 50 employees. Think of that. Over 99% of businesses. And think of this. 50% of those employed in the private sector, I'm talking about over 13 million people, are directly employed by small businesses. And yet, think again of what this Labour government has done. NIC of itself has had a massive impact on all of these people as employers. But just think, reducing the level at which NIC becomes appropriate to $5,000 a year, whilst at the same time putting up the minimum wage for under 18s by 18%, has meant 50,000 fewer teenagers have jobs today than did this time last year. Legislation that might work for big firms doesn't work for small firms. And I think the other great betrayal, and it is that, is every one of these millions of businesses, every one of these 5.6 million businesses believed that with Brexit, the regulatory burden on their shoulders would become less. And yet I can tell you, a decade on almost from the referendum, that in every single industry, from financial services to fisheries, the burden of regulation, the threat of the regulator is worse now than it was then. In fact, I know many businesses literally live in fear of the inspector walking through the door, who in many cases seem to take an almost perverse pleasure at doing down small business. Some on the left will tell you, well, the economy is failing because capitalism is failing. No, we're not living in capitalism. We're living in an age of global corporatism. We're living in an age where the big businesses virtually control and own the political arena. Capitalism is what these people do. Free enterprise is what these people do. These people take risks. They risk their own money. They go to the bank and borrow money. They've no idea at the start whether their business concept will work or not. And many of them will have failures along the way. But that's what free market enterprise is about. It's about risk. It's about reward. It's about failure. And some of them, who despite everything, go on, succeed, make lots of money, well, they're almost treated in Britain as if they've done something wrong. As if morally it's wrong to be successful. Morally it's wrong to make money. Well, what a reform government will do is everything we can do from the education system onwards to change that culture. We will champion hard work. We will champion success. We will look to advertise men and women who we see as British heroes because they've set things up and they've succeeded. And think about it. Every big business, and by the way, there are only 8,000 big businesses in the whole of the UK against all the other millions such as yourselves. But every big business starts as a small business. Every innovation comes originally from somebody who's got a new idea. With good small business, with a healthy marketplace, you get increased choice for customers, you get better pricing, and you get better and greater technological development. I'm fearful that this budget won't understand any of that. And of course, everything about this budget will be to attack hard work, attack saving, attack aspiration. But if Rachel Reeves does make changes to dividend income, etc., I can see a lot of small businesses, especially those in the tech space, just thinking, you know what? I'll hop on a plane to Dublin and I'll work from there. It'll be just so much easier. I fear the flight of business, the lack of investment in this country will get significantly worse if Reeves does touch dividends. So my message today is very, very simple. The Conservatives betrayed you on small business. Labour doesn't have any comprehension of actually what you do as small business. We do. We get it. I've been in business. I've run my own businesses, as many of my colleagues have, as thousands of our members have. And so today, as we launch Small Business for Reform, we are looking for tens of thousands of businesses up and down this country to join this organisation. We will put in place a board. We will work together to produce the right policies for small business, for entrepreneurship, for startups, for our manifesto for the next general election. But more than that, we will become a very strong voice and a very strong lobby for small business as an ongoing part of the national debate in this country. And it's a debate, frankly, that has not been heard for far too long. I feel passionately about this. I will certainly be heavily involved with this organisation. This is in my blood. I know it's in yours too. And I believe we'll get a very large number of people come and join us, join this organisation, help us build a council. Let's give this the single most ignored group of people in this country. 5.6 million businesses, 13 million staff, 50% of jobs in the private sector. It's about time they had a voice, and we intend to give them that.
The Labour government has piled on taxes, red tape, and bureaucracy. Small businesses are closing or hanging on by a thread. Look at who sits on Labour's front bench right now. Hardly any of them have ever started a company, met a payroll, or stayed awake at 2 o'clock in the morning working on ideas or worrying if they can pay the staff on Friday. You cannot run a car that needs petrol on a bottle of milk, no matter how much you believe that the milk is cheaper and the calcium would be ideal for the car's performance. In exactly the same way, you cannot run an economy on pure ideology when the economic engine needs a real-world understanding of profit, risk, and cash flow. This is the core failure we are watching, a complete abandonment of first principles thinking and plain common sense. First principles thinking just means stripping everything back to basic truth that nobody can argue with and building from there. Any policy that ignores that reality is doomed before it starts. Politicians ignore the lived experiences of small business owners, add cost burden after cost burden, then promise growth. Anyone with an ounce of common sense could have told you that the engine would start misfiring sooner or later. Those who hold government power need to be asking themselves some very basic questions. Why make life difficult for small businesses if you know that small businesses are the backbone of our economy? Why make life difficult for small businesses when those companies are the ones that will help you to do the things that you've promised to do, which is growing the economy and creating jobs? Does that make sense? Some practical things you can do as government leaders if you really want to grow the economy. Lower corporation tax significantly. This will allow businesses to invest and reinvest in their companies and employ more workers. Remove the red tape and the bureaucracy. Simplify policies so that small businesses can focus on creating, growing, and employing more people, which will end up looking good on you. Next time you hear a politician talk about growth, ask 2 simple questions. Are they thinking from first principles, starting with how the world really works? Or are they just pouring ideological milk into a petrol engine and hoping for the best. Hold every leader to those two standards: first principle thinking and plain common sense. If enough of us do, we might finally get the government our small businesses deserve. If you have benefited in any way from this video, please subscribe, like, share, and be sure to leave us a comment.